Hello and welcome to the SpaceChem Tournament 2020 Round 3B video. Today I've got brookieoz with me.
Hello.
And Gigs with me.
Hello.
And I am Rexkix. And we're going to look at the puzzle in a moment. Here we go. But before we look at the puzzle, I want to thank the tournament hosts, RPO and 12345 IEEE. RPO did all the puzzles. He's the main guy. And 12345 IEEE is the guy who does all the number crunching and is also the main guy. He's one of the two developers that did the SpaceChem Community Edition that we use for the tournament. It's got all kinds of enhancements, and we really love it big time. And so thank you, 12345 IEEE and RPO. And I'll say the other developer for the SpaceChem Community Edition is Csaboka. Thank you very much, Csaboka. Okay, so here's the puzzle. Gigs is going to explain it to us.
Round 3B uses the same concepts as 3A, but the products are easier to make. We were trained in week 2 to use more than 2 swappers, and this week the swappers are mandatory because there's a huge quantum wall in the middle of the reactor. So the only way to get an atom on the right side of it is to use the swappers. In this puzzle you need 4 input alphas and 1 input beta to make uranium tetrafluoride, and well, it leaves you with 2 waters on the side. As with round 3A, every zinc symbol in the reactor will add 10 to your cycle score. So if you want to get a good score, you pretty much need to avoid having any zinc in there.
Indeed. So the inputs here actually have the outputs are actually balanced in 10 uranium tetrafluorides and 10 waters. This does mean that you'll usually end up over making water by 10 molecules. Theoretically, you could try to store a whole bunch of oxygen into your reactor, but the issue with that is you'd also have to store all the hydrogen waste that you input through the hydrogen fluoride. And in the end, nobody ended up doing anything like that because you have to store 30 atoms worth of waste in your reactor, and hydrogen without any fusion in this puzzle is notoriously difficult to store because it only bonds once, and it's, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation. The first solution is by IGGGAMES. He is a newcomer to the tournament and must have found out about it late because he turned his solution in late. And so he has no score, but we definitely wanted to show off his solution and say, welcome to the tournament, IGGGAMES. Let's go see what this one looks like.
Right, so IGGGAMES goes and shows one of the ways of solving this this puzzle by inputting, well, by selectively programming what atom goes through the swappers each time. So instead of making the 2 outputs at the same time, which most other people do, he actually stores a bunch of hydrogen in his reactor and makes the water later. So red will program and get all the atoms over for blue to make both outputs. But as you can see, it is rather slow because most of the time red is actually waiting on blue to do something. And unfortunately, yes, there's a lot of sinks involved, and that's a big part of why this solution is not as fast as it can be.
Okay, well, let's go speed it up. Only for that reason.
So IEEE mentioned that IGGGAMES sent multiple wall-less solutions before finally making this one. So it's not an easy puzzle to solve, and so congratulations on finally getting it to work.
Nice. And we'll watch it go for a few more cycles. Or one more cycle. Here's the uranium tetrafluoride going out. And here's one water. And the other water. Okay, now. Let's run at full speed. IGGGAMES comes out with a cycle count of 1729, but with his 14 sinks, he comes up with a metric of 1869. As I said, he didn't get a score because he turned in late. But welcome to the tournament, IGGGAMES. Looking forward to seeing more. Next solution is by RPO. He also doesn't get a score because he's our tournament host. Thank you very much for running the tournament, RPO. Anyhow, here's his solution, and Gigs, I think, is going to explain this one.
Right, so RPO doesn't have a very fast solution, and well, he didn't try much, of course, but one of the reasons is that you have a single swapper over each input, and that does mean that you have to do a lot of handling and moving atoms around to get them back on the swapper. And well, also, as with IGGGAMES solution, there are sinks, which means that either Waldo spends some time waiting on the other to finish. But otherwise, the assembly is pretty standard. We see uranium tetrafluoride assembled with bond plus rotate, which we'll see in several solutions. And the water is actually made without rotates because at only 2 atoms bonded to the oxygens, you don't have to rotate. You can just place each of them one after the other.
Indeed. One of the reasons why this solution in particular is slower is that Blue is doing this huge loop to process the hydrogen fluoride to add 1 fluorine at a time. So a lot of time here is spent moving left and right. And we'll see that in better solutions, in faster solutions, that these that atoms will, or the Waldos will move a lot less from the left side to the right side.
Okay, let's let it run for a few more cycles. There's our both atoms being, both molecules being created, and there we go. And RPO comes out with a cycle count of 1355. With his 2 sinks, he gets a metric of 1375. And thank you very much, RPO. Our first scoring solution is by Darkid at 27th place. Let's go take a look at it.
Darkid has the only scoring solution over 1000 cycles. He has, like RPO, a swapper over each input, and as mentioned, this means that you do have to move around a lot, left to right, to get the fluorines on the other side. So we can see that uranium and both oxygens were placed first on bonding stations, and then the hydrogens and fluorines will come later. That means, well, you have to dedicate a Waldo to be a sort of a feeder, which is what Blue is doing here. Blue is feeding atoms on the first swapper to get them on the assembly side. So this solution is a good showcase of bonder priority. You can see the station for the waters. It works only with particular bonder arrangement, because everything gets bonded at the end, and yeah, you need the oxygen to not bond to each other, and the same as the hydrogens.
And here it goes. The last hydrogen's coming into place, and the bond happens, and the two oxygens are not bonded, but we get two waters, and we output right here. Now, darkid runs at 1099 cycles, but because he used 5 sinks, his metric is 1149 cycles.
So there are two things you could improve slightly. The first one is, well, at the top left you can see that blue drops the atom before swapping. This may not be necessary. In this particular case you can just swap, and because there is no atom will take the place on swapper 1, the swap will act as a drop, so that works just fine. If you run the solution, it will complete with just one symbol less. However, we can also save a cycle, but in that case we do need to get the drop symbol back for some particular reason. You need to move the blue start 2 left and 3 up, have it point right, and then the red start needs to go all the way at the bottom, 1 tile to the right, all the way at the bottom, and pointing left. Yeah. So you have input beta, swap after the red start, and then since you're coming from the other way, you need to fix the flip-flop, the first one, on red's loop. It has, no, the one below that. It has to go down, and then you remove the arrow.
Okay.
And so what this is a special cased first loop. It's just 1 cycle faster, but yeah, sometimes that can make a difference in the ranking.
Let's go see it work. Just make sure it works. So far, so good. And there's an output. It generally does work. 1098 versus 1099. Thank you, Gigs, for those suggestions. Those are great. Next solution is by CursedFlames at 26th place. Here we go. Let's look at it. Brookie.
All right. So CursedFlames solution here has something that we'll see later on as well, where blue has a very small loop and it looks really tight, and this means that it will run pretty fast. However, there is a sink in there, and that means that blue will be waiting for sometimes quite some time while it waits for red to do its thing. So in this solution, we'll also see something that will come up later, in that he actually places the swappers all over the alpha input. This means that he doesn't actually have to process the alpha input at all. So he can repeat by inputting alpha and then doing work on the right side without having to go back to the left side to process inputs. And this is something that definitely speeds up a lot.
Okay, well, let's go watch it produce some outputs.
So unfortunately, the second oxygen is dropped in the input alpha zone, and it has to go, red has to go and pick it up to send it back to for the second water. So there's some time wasted there in traveling back to the left.
Okay. Oh, full speed. And this brings CursedFlames at 997 cycles, excuse me. And with his 2 sinks, he gets a metric of 1017.
And CursedFlame was very close to a sub-1000 metric score. You just needed to tighten one loop, and that's the, yeah, this one. You can turn right one row earlier on red. No, the start is fine. Just the arrow above it, going to the right, you can have it one row higher. So you need the swap to come after, and you after it. No. On the horizontal branch. Yeah, and however, output psi has to go down one square because otherwise it will get triggered on the wrong path. And so
Okay.
this tightens the loop by 2 and should be 20 cycles faster. However, the output psi is what's limiting, and it's also 1 cycle later, so this should save 19.
Okay, well, let's see this work. First, let's watch, is the water going out?
It really doesn't make a difference in the assembly.
Okay, and as promised, this is 978 cycles instead of 997 cycles. This would have given a metric of 998. Oh, thank you very much, Gigs. These improvements are really interesting. The 25th solution is by Xanitross, who's also a newcomer to the tournament. Welcome. And let's go see how it works.
So Xanitross is the first to use free swappers in the input zone. He has a builder feeder setup where blue is on a very tight bonding loop and red is moving around all the reactor, moving atoms where they need to be, doing swap commands, input commands, and sometimes helping with assembly, or in this case, outputting. So there's this key moment to assemble the UF4, which is to rotate the stick and put it back on the bonders. Because blue doesn't have a rotate and the bonders are set up in a straight line, you need to rotate to assemble uranium tetrafluoride.
Okay. Let's watch it a couple more times. At least one more time. Go ahead.
Yeah, Xanitross has 2 sinks, and that's really a shame because they don't actually need to be here. But yeah, we'll see that.
Let's run into completion. Okay. Xanitross gets a cycle count of 868, significant improvement over CursedFlames, and he earns a score of 3.983 for 25th place. You said there were improvements, Gigs. Let's go see them.
Yeah, so first of all, right next to the start, there's an extra up arrow.
Oh.
No, the red start, sorry.
Red start. Where are you, red start?
Top right.
Thank you. Not this.
No, on the grab drop, yeah. And 1 tile down and 1 tile to the left, there is an extra right arrow too. So yeah, these don't really matter. And so a concept that we'll see in our solutions is that red has a rotate, and so it has an uneven cycle count on its loop, or odd cycle count. And so we need to, if we want to have both Waldos synced, we need to fix the parity of red's path. So one way to do that is to use sinks, of course, and that's what Xanitross did. But you can also do something else, like remove those sinks, and then you can fix the parity on red, which would add a cycle per loop, but because you get 20 points from not having sinks, then that's an improvement. So yeah, you guessed it, you need a wall flip-flop, and it has to go, here. No, actually that won't work. For some obscure reason that I forgot, you need to have output psi just 1 square down, and have the wall flip-flop at the top right, pointing down, right. And so this fixes the parity, and blue also stays in sync, I believe.
Let's see about that.
So yeah, blue is actually timed to red for most of the solution. The only issue was at the very end because of parity, and so now it's fixed. But as I said, because of the fix on red, that's actually a bit slower. And so you can also fix the parity on blue, even if it's a bit more involved. So yeah, just remove the wall flip-flop. And you have to move that arrow 2 to the left. Have a wall flip-flop going down against the wall. And just a flip-flop going right here. And I don't think you need to move the blue. Yeah, I think the blue stars can stay here. And this will also work. And since the parity fixes on blue, red's speed isn't changed.
Okay, it looks like it's working. Now the previous was
79.
Well, 879. This runs at 868.
No sinks.
No sinks. So this would get a metric of 868. Nicely done, Gigs. Next solution is by Flexo, who gets 24th place. Let's take a look at how this one works.
Right, so Flexo here does this thing where we've already seen that you can actually take the beta input and rotate and move it up to the alpha if you put the swappers completely over the alpha inputs. So that's something that many people have done. But what's different about this solution is blue is the only Waldo in the Omega output area. It's the only one that's responsible for constructing all the water. And unfortunately, there's sinks in this solution, where red will tell blue to sink whenever it has inputted either an oxygen or hydrogen into the swapper for Omega for blue.
Okay. Well, let's watch it finish up a cycle. Here's the water going out. Here's our second water coming through.
I do like that red hits the sink on 3 different paths, but it's only a single.
Here's the one sink. Here's
sink symbol.
Well,
there are 2 on red's path, but one gets hit on 3 different paths.
Oh,
so that saves metric points.
Nice. Well, let's watch it finish. And Flexo here gets 800 cycles, but with his 3 sinks, he gets a metric of 830 for a score of 4.327. Thank you, Flexo. Next solution is by Astronelson at 23rd place. Let's go take a look at it.
So Astronelson has a faster implementation of what is the ID CursedFlame used, basically. We have both swappers over input alpha, with input beta being brought up, and the second oxygen being left over and picked up later. So it gains time by having red already place hydrogen and a fluorine before blue brings in the center atoms. So the oxygen and uranium. I believe this is our first sinkless solution.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's correct. And so Astronelson has a clever use of the sensor because he uses it as a poor man's sink. You can see, well, blue was just waiting on the hydrogen sensor symbol for a while, and that really acts as a sink, even if it's not a sink symbol. And so that's one clever way to use the sensor.
Is it more of a flip-flop than a sink? Half the time it goes down and half the time it goes left.
No. It's sparked. Blue waldo is sparking against the wall until a hydrogen
Oh,
comes on
here's
the
the one
sensor.
you're talking about. Never
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go watch blue stop there. It stopped. And there you go. And let's run at full speed. This gives Astronelson a cycle time of 808. And with no sinks, he gets a metric of 808. His score is 4.516 for 23rd place.
We have a small improvement to make. First of all, you don't actually need the rotate on blue at the top left.
Oh.
You don't need that. You just need the swap to happen one cycle later. So you move the swap command down on that. Yeah.
Now,
on
won't that ruin the
row.
paratree? Don't we need to have a flip-flop here?
No. It doesn't. The parity doesn't need to be fixed because there's actually a sync, sort of. So there's no need to fix the parity here.
Okay.
That was just a one cycle delay to avoid a crash. That doesn't happen if you have the swap one cycle later. And as you'll see, red's exit loop, the one where it outputs omega, has a detour of sorts. It goes down when it could be going straight left. And we can actually make that happen. So yeah, like this. And then you need to fix blue's loop. So if I recall correctly, it's on the bottom left. You need to have the hydrogen symbol against the wall. No arrow though. No arrow going down.
Of course not.
You need to go right just one row above the hydrogen sensor.
Yes.
So just one row above. So one square down, you go right. Then you need to delay by 2 cycles. So you go back to the left after that right arrow. And you have a flip-flop going right. And then you don't want to input 2 betas, so you remove the flip-flop that's 3 squares up here. And the arrow too. And so I believe it works. And then we've shortened blue's loops by 2. And since these happen twice per loop, we've actually tightened the red's path by 4. It should be around 40 cycles faster.
Let's go see. And in fact, it's 30 cycles faster.
38. Yeah, no, 800 was Flexo's solution. Astronelson was at 808.
Correct now. Okay.
So about 40 cycles.
There you go. That's good. Thank you very much, Gigs. The next solution's by Binky at 22nd place. Let's go take a look at it. Rookie.
Right, so Binky's solution is quite low symbols. One of the lowest symbols submitted this week, actually. It's pretty cool, but unfortunately, there's a lot of time that Binky spends moving from the left side to the right side, which definitely inflates the cycle count. This is because while he does put the swappers over the alpha inputs, which does save a lot of time, where he doesn't have to do any of the input processing, he does have to. He does have red go to the left side to process the beta input, and he also has blue go all the way to the left as well. And that unfortunately does increase the time. And you can also see that there's timing loops on red's right side.
Yeah, the assembly loops are also a bit large, and that ends up wasting time too.
Okay. Well, let's go watch him make another. There we go. Let's go full speed. This gives Binky a cycle time of 751, and with no sinks, he gets a metric of 751. Gets a score of 4.912 for 22nd place. Thank you, Binky.
Named his solution unoptimized, so we'll cut him some slack, but still, there are 2 extra symbols in there.
Where are they?
Blue's path at the top left. You don't actually top left. You don't actually need the flip flop. You can just go to the left, run row higher, and then you don't need either the flip flop or the up arrow. It's exactly the same.
Okay, well, let's go see
But
this.
yeah, he didn't try, so.
And indeed it works. Same cycle count, 2 less symbols would have given him 47 symbols, which I believe was the lowest symbol count in this round. Is that right?
With scoring symbol, yeah.
Ah, yes, with scoring symbols. Next solution is 21st place is Csaboka's. Csaboka is, before we say anything about his solution, we need to say thank you for maintaining the community edition of SpaceChem. The community edition adds a whole bunch of features. Most important, I think, to us is the ability to have more than one solution for a puzzle. And also he added features that are being tested thoroughly by the tournament. Things like having 4 swappers, things in previous rounds of having more than one fuser or more than one splitter. We have 2 sensors in here. All that's because of the community edition. The tournament's basically built around extensions that the community edition built into the game. So let's go take a look how Csaboka's solution works.
So Csaboka has labeled that solution parallel build, and it's a very accurate description of what happens here. You can see red and blue in complete sync, sort of like synchronized swimming. It's really beautiful to watch. It has, well, similar concepts with both swappers over input alpha and then rotate-based assembly. The assembly loops are pretty tight, so yeah, this is what makes it faster than the solutions we've seen previously. Unfortunately for him, the solution has 5 sinks, so it doesn't score as well as you'd expect, but it's still a fast one.
Okay, well, let's go see it work a little more. I love that synchronized swimming. Okay. At full speed, we find out it has a cycle count of 679. With his 5 sinks, he gets a metric of 729 for 21st place and a score of 5.125.
Yeah, we can remove the sinks though.
We can?
Yeah, we can. All of them.
All of
there are
them.
5. So yeah,
Here's
2 on red and 3 on blue.
Here's one.
And
here's another.
Yeah, and 1 above.
There we
Above.
are.
Yeah.
And let's go remove them.
The only thing you need to do is have red go on a timing loop. So yeah, you just move your arrow on the right arrow on the start, you move it down. You go up against the left wall. And 2 rows higher, you go back right. And then you move the start 1 down and 2 to the left. And you have a flip-flop going up just after, just to the left of it. And you go back to the main loop, yeah. So there's an extra arrow now on the grab.
Yes, there is.
And yeah, all this does is replace the sinks with timing loops. And it works exactly the same. It's even better because I believe Rookie mentioned in the exit loop, because there's no sync, blue doesn't have to wait for 2 cycles.
Right.
So it's even faster.
Let's go see this work to completion. And it is 2 cycles faster for 20 cycles less at 659. No sinks. This would have given a metric of 659 or a 70 metric improvement. That would have been big. But we learn. And thank you very much, Gigs, for this these tricks. Next solution is by Blueeyedrat at 20th place. Let's go take a look at his solution. Brookie.
Right, so here is Blueeyedrat solution. Is quite similar to the previous solution, but the difference is there's still quite a lot of long loops going from side to side. You can see that red has this really strange long loop at the bottom there that has no symbols in it. That's purely a timing loop. And yeah, it does a very similar parallel build where both red and blue have a 9-cycle loop to add on the hydrogens and fluorines to the outputs.
Okay, let's go watch it. 2-speed. And one more
the
output.
lowest symbol solution.
Oh, 47 symbols it is.
And it's usually typical Blueeyedrat. He usually makes low symbol solutions.
Nice. Okay, well, let's run full speed. This gives Blueeyedrat a metric cycle count of 718. With no sinks, his metric is 718 for a score of 5.274 and 20th place. Next solution is by Counterpoint for 19th place. Let's go take a look at it.
So Counterpoint also does a parallel build solution. However, he saves time by only going into the input zone once. The second oxygen is dropped on the swappers, and then it's actually stored by blue. Well, no, the first one is stored, and the second is used right away. But yeah, the point is, because both oxygen are sent right away, red does not need to go back to the input zone, and so that saves a lot of time.
Okay, well, I'll watch it at 2-speed.
Yeah, well, there's no need to backtrack in the middle of the assembly. The build loops are a bit loose, so it's not as fast as it could be, but still good.
Okay, let's watch it go to completion. This gives Counterpoint a cycle count of 6.64 with no sinks, giving him a score of 5.736 for 19th place. Next solution is by Rezoons for 18th place. Here it is. Rookie.
So Rezoons again does the typical having the swappers over to the alpha input area, which definitely speeds up all the hydrogen fluoride handling. Unfortunately, this is, while he does have a 6-cycle loop to add on his hydrogens and fluorines, which definitely does speed things up. It unfortunately still does have some delay loops in here, especially if you look at red, which has quite an obvious delay loop on the left side. So yeah.
Let's watch it.
Because the second oxygen is left not on the swappers, so blue has to come get it back.
And here it
as
is.
we mentioned on the darkid solution, I believe, this has a special cased first input with the red start at the bottom left, so it's instant beta input and blue grabs, so that saves a cycle.
Okay. Now, it should be mentioned that rezoons got the first place solution in our symbol count for round 2. Rezoons here get 644 cycles for a metric of 644 and a score of 5.972, and giving them 18th place. Thank you, rezoons. Next solution is by anningmay for 17th place. So take a look at it.
Anningmay has a faster parallel build solution with rotates in the assembly. This one combines leaving the second oxygen on the swappers and tighter assembly loops that have a rotate. So as you see, the assembly loop on blue is 6 squares wide. You can't have 4 if you leave the second oxygen on the swappers, because you need a swap on the assembly loop. Otherwise, the oxygen will crash against an input alpha. And yeah, while these solutions are getting faster, there's the issue that having a rotate in the assembly loop costs time, especially when these loops are repeated 4 times per output psi.
Okay.
Yep. And you can also see here that red does have kind of a painful timing loop on the right side, where it has to go all the way up to the second row before coming back down. And blue also has a timing loop right in the middle of the reactor, which theoretically, again, these things theoretically can be cut, but in practice, it's much different.
Okay. Well, here we're almost done, so let's let it go. And this gives anningmay a cycle count of 613 for 17th place and a score of 6.316. Next solution is my own at 16th place, and I get to explain it. First thing I do is I grab the uranium dioxide and shove it into this swapper. And I leave the other 2 swappers up here for the hydrogen fluoride. No Waldo has to go in here and shove anything in the hydrogen fluoride swapper. But this means I only have 1 swapper left in the output zone, which is shared by red and blue. They go up and down and up and down. Blue has this long timing loop too, it should be said, to match with red's need to go back. So we get your fluorine going up, hydrogen going down, fluorine going up, hydrogen going down. Red also has this modest timing loop that slows everything down a little bit. But here's my solution, and I'm proud of it. Let's watch it go again for another output. There we go. And full speed ahead. This gives me a cycle count of 586 for 16th place and a metric of 586 and a score of 6.648. Nice job, Rexkix. 15th place is Zig Solution, which is right here.
So Zig Solution is titled Oof, and it's titled that for a pretty good reason too. There's one really big blue line right in the bottom of the reactor there. That is purely a timing loop. It's unfortunate, yes, but there's not really much you could do about it.
Let's go watch it go at 2 speed.
So, Zig has a slightly unusual thing in his solution. Most people use non-consecutive swappers over the input alpha, and you can see his are actually consecutives. And so, if you want to get both atoms over to the output zone, you need to have both 2 swap symbols. Whereas if you have let's say swappers 1 and 3, a single swap command is all that's needed to get both atoms to the other side.
And here are the two swaps on red. Here is swap on red and swap on blue. We'll watch it hit that. And swap and swap. There's our pair of swappers. And again. Okay. Let's watch it build its output one more time. And one more time. Okay. Full speed ahead. This gives Zig a cycle count of 569 and a score of 6.898 for 15th place. 14th place solution is by McCrush, and here it is.
So McCrush has a similar assembly loop to that of Zig's solution, only they're vertical instead of horizontal, so they're quite fast, and he gains time by leaving the second oxygen on the swappers, so blue doesn't have to go back to the input zone and pick it up. So yeah, that means you have to juggle a bit with the swaps, but it ends up saving time overall.
Okay.
Indeed. McCrush has some pretty interesting sensor use where the two sensors are smack in the middle of between the two output zones. And he also uses only 4 bonders.
Okay. So watch it go. A couple more outputs.
He left an arrow though.
Oh, did he leave an arrow? Sin of all sins. Let's go find it after we let it run to completion. Okay, McCrush gets cycle count at 528, better than its predecessor of 569. That gives McCrush a score of 7.439 for 14th place. But you said something about an extra arrow. Let's go find it.
Yeah, it's on red at the top on the bond plus
Oh, boy.
symbol.
There's the offensive arrow. Bye-bye.
I feel much better, thank you.
Ah, me too. And, oh, no, that is an extra arrow. Okay.
Yeah, there's actually a slightly different way to do the init that saves an arrow, but it's pretty involved and I don't remember exactly how it works, so
Okay.
you
well,
get away with it this time.
Let's go watch this run again, because that's what we do. And it's still 528, but one less symbol. It was 62, now 61 symbols. 13th solution is by JoJo, and here it is. Brookie.
So JoJo here does something kind of nobody else really did, where he actually has bonders over the input area, so he can input a beta, grab it, and slam it into the alpha inputs without actually going to the swappers in the alpha. This does save him some time because he doesn't have to. He doesn't need to move to the very top, the second row, and he only needs to go to the third row. Other than that, it's a pretty standard six cycle building loop where red and blue build the outputs. But
And one main difference is that hydrogen and fluorine are placed on the bonders before oxygen and uranium,
Yeah.
and that means that you don't need to rotate during most of the assembly, so that ends up saving some time.
So here's our
Yes.
hydrogen and fluorine, and here comes the oxygen and uranium.
you can see that blue also has a timing loop right in the middle there where it juts out when it's running from the top to the bottom side. And also there are some flip-flops at the bottom there that also help time blue correctly.
Okay.
And something, yeah, an issue with this solution is that uranium tetrafluoride is fully formed and dropped quite a few cycles before being outputted, and that's because JoJo ran out of symbols on his red path.
Okay, let's watch it go. And here it's fully formed. It's dropped, but zoom, 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 and then
6,
final
7 cycles.
output.
Yep.
Giving JoJo a cycle count of 492 and a score of 7.987 for 13th place. But I cut you off, Gigs. What were you going to say?
Yeah, with a small fix you can reduce the latency a bit
Okay.
with that output size. So you see the red flip-flop at the top right.
Here?
You just go to the right with it. Yeah.
That's left. Here's
Yeah,
right.
then you go down against the wall and back left on the main path. So output omega needs to be on blue. And
Where's it
it
go?
is just above the timing flip-flops at the bottom. And then you need to fix red path or one, otherwise it will crash. So if you go on the left, you remove that flip-flop and that arrow too.
And if
you
I were...
have a you have a flip-flop pointing down in the middle of the red loop.
Flip-flop button down in the middle of the red loop.
Yeah, here, exactly.
Like that?
Yeah, just move it one square to the up, to the right and up. Yeah, in the middle of that loop. And remove the arrow going right, because you don't need that anymore. So this is essentially the same cycle count for the loop, but then you can output 3 cycles faster.
Oh, that arrow right where you put it, I think that should go to the right and be 1 square
Oh
up.
yeah, exactly. Sorry.
This
Just
one
move
goes
it 1 square up from there. There you go.
There we go.
Absolutely.
You can watch it work.
We also saw the blue in it that placed the uranium dioxide on the bonders, and so red doesn't have to do that later.
Now I know it looks like we could put this output 1 up, but we really can't. We discovered this yesterday, so let's go take a look why. And here we go. Blue is using a sense on the fluorine right here, so that means red can't output right here. So that's why red has to output this cycle. And let's go run it to completion. 489 instead of 492. Yes, saving 3 cycles. Thank you, Gigs. Next solution is by lilkcough at number 12. Let's go take a look at it.
So lilkcough is back to a builder feeder setup that we haven't seen in a while. He has the 2 swappers over alpha, like basically everyone. And red is going around, moving atoms, swapping, inputting, and sometimes helping blue with both output assemblies. And blue is just running around on this 9 cycle loop, making water and uranium tetrafluoride. So yeah, blue runs in 9. He goes around 5 loops, I believe, per output psi. So that should be 45 cycles, and red actually runs at 45, so everything works out. So he has 49 cycles, and there's yeah, you'd think that you would be able to move the output psi 1 cycle earlier, but there's a special output quirk that prevents this. So when the uranium tetrafluoride is fully formed here, you have when red is going to hit output symbol, if it was one cycle earlier, there would be 2 molecules candidate for output. So you'd have the hydrogen that blue grabbed and the uranium tetrafluoride. And when there are several molecules up to be outputs, the way the game works is that it tries to output first the molecule that was dropped the earliest. And in this case, here we see the hydrogen was in the output zone and then UF4 was dropped. So the oldest molecule in there was the hydrogen, and so it would have been output first. And so that's why you can't move the output command one cycle faster.
And let's go watch it to completion and go test that out. This gives lilkcough a cycle time of 448 cycles for a score of 8.726. But
449.
449. Thank you, misspoke. 449 cycles, and that gives lilkcough 12th place. Let's go see what happens if we move this output psi one cycle earlier. And don't.
Outputs.
And he can't do that.
So yeah, you can't. Also arrows.
Arrows?
Yeah,
no.
Blue loop.
Offensive arrow removed.
Red rotates.
Red rotate. Offensive arrow removed. Thank you very much. And of course it runs the same. And there are some sirens for you. Okay. Like I said, this gives lilkcough 12th place. And let's go take a look at the next solution.
Yeah, that's the arrow police.
Oh. That is the arrow police. By the way, if he'd gotten rid of those arrows, he would have had 47 symbols for a tie for at least symbols of a scoring solution. Interesting, but not important. Next solution is by Lazy Comet for 11th place. Let's go take a look at it.
So Lazy Comet is just one cycle faster than lilkcough, and he has a similar algorithm, although the implementations are very different. There's also a blue builder and a red feeder. Blue is also on a 9-cycle loop that it goes through 5 times, and then red is running around, inputting, swapping, and helping occasionally with the assembly. A difference is that there are 3 swappers in the input zone, and that's the way, that's how Lazy Comet found the way to not move the oxygen, the second oxygen back on the swappers. It works out really well.
Okay.
And there's also that output quirk that rears its head here. The difference when compared to a lilkcough solution is that in Lazy Comet's case, the hydrogen is the newest molecule in the output zone when the red output psi symbol is hit. And so when that symbol is hit, you have both molecules, but uranium tetrafluoride is output first. And yeah, that's basically the cycle between 12th and 11th place.
Nice. And you'll notice that red will pause here for one cycle while it thinks about outputting that hydrogen, but just can't do it because blue picks it up. Okay, well, let's watch this to completion. Just another output. And full speed ahead. This gives Lazy Comet a cycle count of 448, one place better than lilkcough at 11th place and a score of 8.820. Nice job, Lazy Comet. We're now in the top 10, and gggol gets 10th place here with this solution. Let's go take a look at it. Brookie.
Alright, so with gggol, gggol did something very similar to what he did for week 3A's puzzle, where he has a lot of really interesting long lines up and down. So the reason why he did something like this is by going down through the swappers, he's able to grab it, and then only 2 cycles later, he's able to go back up and then reuse the grab over the swapper to obtain his second atom over the from the swapper. gggol is also one of the few people who ended up using consecutive swappers over the input area instead of the alternating swappers, where 2 atoms can be transported through with a single swap.
So 1 and 4 over here.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to watch it at 2 speed. I just love the lines going up and down and up and down.
Yep. So no rotates are used at all in the solution, which definitely speeds things up. Red goes on quite the long journey to special case out all the swaps to tell blue, well, to get blue to pick up the right atom. And blue does have a timing loop. You can see that it doesn't necessarily have to go all the way to the middle of the reactor, crossing the quantum junction or wall.
Yep. And let's go watch it to completion one more time. This gives gggol a cycle count of 438 and a score of 9.070. In 9th place, we have ToughThought with this here solution. Let's go take a look at it. Gigs.
So, similar to his pre-A solution, I believe, ToughThought has a figure 8 setup. It was the same as Lazy Comet, I believe. The key difference is that red actually helps, and well, not helps, but steals one of the atoms from blue, and so that means that on the 5th loop, blue doesn't rotate, so it saves a cycle per output, and it's about 10 cycles faster in the end. Well, more than that because there's also less latency. But yeah, that's one improvement that you can make in these builder feeders with rotate in the loop. ToughThought was also one of the few people with free swappers in the input zone, and that means that it makes it easy to only go once in the beta zone and swap everything over to the other side.
Now, there's one thing I really like about this solution. It's silly, it's small, but this red rotate right here keeps everything in sync, and everything just pauses right here. And there it goes again. It's just silly. I don't mind. But I just love the way how they both take a breath and then move on.
There's an interesting quirk it's coming up right here where red actually pauses on that output, that psi output, and that's because while the reason why it does that is because when red actually hits there's the uranium tetrafluoride output, but there's also blue who has yet to grab the oxygen. So it outputs the uranium tetrafluoride first, and then red will stall on the output because it thinks it still has one more atom to output. But then blue grabs that second atom that was going to be outputted, and it continues onwards.
No. Okay. Never mind. And let's watch it run to completion. ToughThought gets 432 cycles instead of the predecessor at 438. for 9th place and a score of 9.255. 8th place is by brookieoz. brookieoz is here to explain his solution, so let's go do it.
Well, I decided that, well, it's probably the fastest way to get atoms by using a 4-cycle loop, right? Because then I can have both Waldos working at the same time. And if that's the case, then on average, it's 1 atom across the gap for every 2 cycles, which is all fine and good. But the issue is it also slows down other things. So blue has to run all the way over, and because of that, red has a pretty painful delay loop on the right side. And blue also has another delay loop to also wait for red to go back up, and also to fix parity because it has that one rotate in it.
Okay. Let's watch that 2-speed. I'll note that you also bring in the hydrogen and fluorine before you bring in the oxygen and uranium.
Yes.
And
so that allows me to go through the 4-cycle loop without worrying about crashing into the oxygen that's already in the swappers.
Yeah, I really like the way you avoid using a rotate by doing a bond plus here and a drop there, bringing the uranium tetrafluoride piece one down and ready for the next one in. Here we go, and it's ready for the next pair of fluorines.
Yep. You might look at and see that there's like this blue loop that juts out to the side right at the start command. That's actually not savable. Theoretically, red could go up and then go back and have like a 2-cycle shorter loop to go back to the input alpha and grab 2 more fluorines out of it. But the issue is you actually run out of space for symbols then, because red has to hit that bond plus and also output, and it just doesn't work.
Such the pity. Okay, well, here we go. Let's run it to completion. And we get, Brookie gets a cycle count of 418, and a metric of 418 for a score of 9.596. In 7th place, we have Gigs with his solution here, and he's going to explain it to us.
So my solution is very similar to Brookie's. We both place hydrogen and fluorines on opposite bonder pads, then bring in oxygen and uranium. I actually had 428 with what Brookie used, which is to get the second oxygen in place before the hydrogens on the second water. And that meant I did that with a very long timing loop, which I wasn't satisfied with, and so I tried to change it by having the second oxygen placed first. And unfortunately, that means that you need to juggle the oxygen atom on the swappers, and so you can't make a 4-cycle loop like Brookie did, and you need a 6-cycle loop for the assembly. But it ended up saving enough time overall to be just 10 cycles faster. The way it was able to save is that I can fix the parity on the Waldo that doesn't rotate, and so it's an odd cycle count for the loop, but yeah, 41 cycle, just a bit faster.
Okay.
We'll see later that someone has managed to get a very fast way to place the second oxygen before the hydrogen and fluorine, which I wasn't able to do.
Okay, well, just let it run to completion. There it is. And as promised, Gigs gets a cycle count of 408, 10 cycles better than Brookie's 418, and a score of 9.872, and 7th place. Nice job, Gigs. Biggie Mac is bringing up 6th place with this here solution. Let's go take a look at it. Brookie.
All right, so Biggie's solution here also has, well, it's interesting because he has a 4-cycle loop in blue, which is rather interesting. And you would think that, well, with every time you make a psi output, you're making 2 waters. So that's 11 atoms total that you have to bring through the swapper. You would think that this would limit you to a theoretical cycle count of 440. But as you can see coming up right here, red actually helps out with one of the atoms going through the swapper through the swappers, and that's what cuts us down to a theoretical minimum of 400 instead.
And let's go watch that particular cycle. Red's grabbing that fluorine. I keep saying fluorine, I mean to say fluoride. Oh well.
Oh, doesn't really matter. The SpaceChem doesn't really take account of electric charges in in the game anyway.
As advertised, it is all fake chemistry.
There's that nice rotate on red.
Yes, let's take a look at this one. Watch this rotate here. It comes dangerously close. Oh, my word.
But, yeah.
And one more time.
So Biggie is on a...
Go ahead.
Binky is on a 40-cycle loop. So, yeah, theoretically that would be 400 cycles or just under, but it has a pretty long init, and so it wastes a few cycles there and ends up just above 400.
Okay, well, let's go watch it to completion. And Biggie gets a cycle count of 405, just better than Gigs 408. And here we go, giving him a score of 10.010 and 6th place. Next solution is by Noeuchar at 5th place. Now, Noeuchar, please tell us how to pronounce your name properly, because there's a bunch of confusion about it. Too many vowels in a row. Anyhow, here's Noeuchar's solution, 5th place. Let's go see how it works.
So Noeuchar also has a 4-cycle loop here, and red also helps out with bringing 1 atom through the swapper. So if you're counting that correctly, that means it should have the exact same theoretical cycle count as Biggie's. And he also does have the exact same cycle count as Biggie's, but Noeuchar beats him by 3 symbols.
Uh-oh. 3 symbols.
Yeah.
That's...
Binky beat me by 3 cycles. I felt it was fitting that he gets beaten by 3 symbols on the tiebreaker.
Here we go.
I'm actually wondering if it's possible to swap the watercolors in here, because that would actually allow him to output 1 cycle sooner.
I think not, because I thought I saw red do a grab right here that was really key.
Yeah, I think there's a swap grab that needs Waldo priority.
No, it's just a grab drop that I'm looking at. I think that oxygen was a swap grab.
I don't think so.
Right at the beginning, there's an input swap. That
Input.
Yeah, beta input blue swap.
Oh, there we are. Yep, I see that.
Unfortunate.
And let's go watch it. I really like that. Right here, red drops, blue grabs, red picks up again, up, down.
Hand off.
Okay, let's watch this finish up. And as promised, Noeuchar gets a cycle count of 405 and 3 less symbols than Biggie Mac's 53, giving him 5th place and a score of 10.087. Nice job, Noeuchar. Next solution is by Sir at 4th place. Before we show the solution, let's just point out that Sir is leading the pack in the tournament itself. He hasn't won any rounds, but he's been so consistently doing well that it adds up to him being in the lead. And we'll see that in a minute. But first, let's take a look at Sir's solution. Here it is.
So Sir has another builder feeder setup with 2 swappers on input alpha. Blue has an interesting loop. It runs in 8, then 6, then 11, then 6 again, and finally 8 cycles. So that's a palindrome, which I find really nice. And red is running around the reactor, helping with assembling, swapping, inputting. Water is made in sticks, while UF4 has the right angle bonds.
Nice. I note, just curiously, red never crosses itself. It's not important,
Nope.
but I think that's very curious.
And of course blue helps with the assembly here and there. And Sir labeled his solution almost 380, because apparently he was very close to getting a 38 cycle loop. But yeah, apparently there was the need for that 12 flip-flop on blue.
Okay, well, let's watch it a little faster and watch a couple of outputs go by. And one more. And now at full speed. As promised, Sir gets a cycle count of 390. Almost got his 380, but not quite. Making a nice healthy jump over the previous place of 405 cycles. This gives Sir 4th place and 10.487 points. Now we're at the podium. 3rd place, Darius H. Let's go take a look at his solution. Brookie.
Right, so Darius H did a thing very similar to Gigs and I, where he's got a really quick 4-cycle loop of setting up the hydrogens, and then he, outputs and does this all over again. However, his implementation is better. Why is that? Well, blue...
Right.
Yes, blue's double back over the swapper there at the bottom means that it doesn't really have to do too big of a delay loop, which makes it cleaner.
Okay, let's go watch it 2-speed.
So he has a 39 cycle loop and pre-88 cycles. So you'd expect the output side to be 2 cycles before the start of a loop, which is correct. Actually, it's at the top right, and you can actually put the blue start 2 squares to the left and pointing left. It's the exact same thing. And you'd have the output side 2 spaces before the starts for, the latency of minus.
So did you say do this?
No, just at the top right, just before the swap. Well, 2 spaces after the output side. No, leave the output side where it is and have the start here.
Okay.
Pointing left.
Pointing left.
Well, that explains things.
Yeah, this is just to visualize better that the output side is 2 spaces before the start, and we'll see soon why I wanted to point that out.
Does this make it faster? Because we should run it to completion.
No, it doesn't make it faster, but it will be something to point out with the next solution. So this is 39 cycle loop, and output side is 2 cycles before the start.
Okay, and we'll keep note of that. Let's run this to completion. This gives Darius H a cycle count of 388 instead of the previous 390 for third place. The next solution is by DariusOne at second place. Here we go, let's take a look at it.
DariusOne is also doing a parallel build, but it's less symmetrical than Darius H's solution. Red starts by inputting 2 hydrogen and then goes off to handle beta. And meanwhile, blue gets to place 3 fluorines atoms in before bringing in the uranium, which is the main difference between that and the other parallel assembly we've seen. They mostly do 2 fluorines, then uranium, then 2 fluorines, and this does 3 uranium and 1. So yeah, as mentioned, it has a 39 cycle, well, it wasn't mentioned, but it also has a 39 cycle loop. And yeah, output psi is also 2 cycles before the start. The blue start could actually be just 1 square under the swap, and it's exactly the same. So you would expect this to also score 388 like Darius H, but it doesn't. And the reason it doesn't is that it has a clever special case for the very first loop. Yeah, that. The way parity is fixed is by having this wall flip-flop. But the first time you go on that square, there's no delay. So the first loop is actually 38 cycles, and then all the others are 39.
Let's go take a look at that really fast. The first time
it's a clever...
blue hits this flip-flop, just sails right past it. No wall delay.
And every other time after that, it stalls for 1 cycle. So yeah, that's a clever special casing the first loop, and it saved the cycle, and that means second place.
That means second place. Nice. Indeed it does. 387 instead of 388 for second place. And now let's see the number 1 solution. Oh boy. The number 1 solution is by Andy with this thing. Let's go take a look at it. Brookie, your turn.
Alrighty, so this is the number 1 solution, and we have something very reminiscent of Sir's solution, where Sir originally had a 6-cycle loop, and this turns out if you have a single Waldo doing this constantly, you're bringing over 1 atom every 3 cycles. It's not a pure 6-cycle loop. There are times where red just goes up and actually does a 8-cycle loop, but that only happens on occasion. And because of this, you have something that is much faster than pretty much all the other solutions up to this point. And blue also comes over and helps with some grabs as well. So yeah, if you did the math, that would be 1 atom every 3 cycles. You've got 1100 atoms to get through. Or sorry, not 1100. You have 110 atoms to get through, and that gives you a theoretical cycle count of 330. Of course, it's a little bit different because that's assuming it's a pure 3 atom per, or 3 cycles per atom loop, which this is not. It's just it's slightly more because of the 8 loop, but again, blue helps out. So
okay, well, let's watch it nice and slow for a couple of them. This is our first place solution.
It's the second place solution by 47 cycles, and the difference between rank 2 and rank 9 was 45 cycles, so yeah, he really wiped the floor there.
Yeah, well, let's go watch it to completion. And as promised, 47 cycles between first and second place. Wow, Andy. Nice job. First place solution for a perfect score of 12.000 and a metric of 340. But wait, there's more. Let's go take a look at some non-scoring solutions. Next solution is by Biggie Mac with a non-scoring solution, and Brookie's going to explain why it exists at all. Go, Brookie.
Yeah, so this is something called a swap hammer. What does that mean? Well, at the top you can see red is doing nothing but hitting the swap command every single cycle. This complicates things. What do I mean by that? Well, it means that every cycle, red is swapping the atoms through the swappers. By default, this means that this has to be a one Waldo solution where one Waldo does all the work. And another interesting thing is this most of the time means you are forced to use the blue Waldo. You're not really forced, but it makes it a lot easier. Why is that? Well, if you have red on the swap command, you can have red swap, and then blue will grab out of the swapper in the single cycle. And then by the next cycle, blue will have already cleared the swapper and can continue on its business. If the colors were switched, though, when blue is on the swap, when red actually gets to the swapper, red will try to grab out of the swapper, but if there's no atom there, it will fail to grab and continue moving without anything held onto it. And then on the next cycle, blue will swap that atom away. Which means that if you're trying to make a swap hammer solution using blue on the swap and red doing all the work, you actually have to prime the swapper with another atom, so you can actually grab onto the swapper, and then when blue swaps, red is still holding on to an atom.
Okay, well, let's watch this produce a couple of outputs. There's the uranium tetrafluoride, there's the water going out.
Yeah, and another thing about swap hammer solutions is because SpaceChem takes place on a two-dimensional grid, if you move away from the swapper and then move back without doing anything special, that means that you're visiting the swapper on every multiple of 2. If you're trying to get a atom out of the swapper and they're right beside each other, as in the swapper is going like 1, 2, 3, and you have atoms in all 3 spots, you have to figure out a way to visit the swapper on an odd number of cycle instead of an even number. And there are 3 ways to do this. One is you have a wall-running flip-flop that adds a single cycle. The second is you use a rotate command, which will also add a single cycle. And the other one isn't really like visiting on an odd cycle, but you can also have blue hit a swap command in addition to red swap, which will shift the atoms on the swappers forwards by 1 instead.
Okay, well, let's run this to completion. This gives Biggie Mac a meaningless 2169 cycles. The key thing is that he has a swap hammer, which is just interesting on itself and a nice fun challenge. And 41 symbols, which I believe is our least for all solutions, including the submitted solutions. Really interesting solution, Biggie Mac. Thank you. Binky gives us another swap hammer solution, and let's go check it out.
So this is also a red swap hammer solution. Binky named his solution swap hammer unoptimized. And so yeah, it's 45 symbols, but there are a few things here and there that could probably be shaved down and maybe could die or even beat Biggy's solution. I haven't checked, but it seems possible. One thing to note is that it's much faster than BiggyMax's solution. Well, one reason is that the loops are tighter, but I believe another reason is that Blue hits a few swap commands, and as Brookie mentioned, this shifts the atoms forward by 1 on the swapper chain. That can change the parity in a much faster way than either rotating or hitting a wall flip-flop.
Here's another swap command. Okay. Well, let's watch this run a little longer, and then we'll go to full speed. And a couple more outputs. I note that there's this grab that Blue does that it doesn't do a miss grab. I think there's 2. Oh, there's 1. Here's a miss grab. Here's a grab. Grab. Miss grab. Okay. I think those are the 2 miss grabs. And full speed ahead. This gives Binky a cycle count of 1741, which isn't really important. The important thing is the swap hammer solution. But wait, there is one more solution to show. Let's go check it out. Andy submitted this extra solution, which is really same as his scoring solution, but there's just a few extra symbols thrown in here. Go ahead, Brookie. Let's explain this one.
Right, so, if you count the number of symbols there are, you might notice it is 2 away from 320. There are 80 squares in the reactor, and each square can hold up to 4 symbols, 1 redirection arrow for red, 1 for blue, and 2 symbols, operational symbols, 1 red and 1 blue. Now, that should give you 320, except the starts will actually take up 1 space each on blue and red, and that will actually make it so that you cannot put a operational symbol on 2 of them, which is why the limit is 318. Well, why did Andy submit this? Doesn't it mean that it'll just instantly lose to any tie breaks? Well, that's the whole point, actually. See, this week was week 3B, which means that there was a special rule saying that if you participated in week 3A, you instantly got the maximum placement bonus in week 3B. And Andy decided that, well, if placement without a placement bonus, then it doesn't matter how many symbols I put in here, because the tie breaks is meaningless. And that's why this solution exists.
It's beautiful. Let's go watch this work. And it just blinks and blinks and blinks and blinks. If you have epilepsy, don't watch this for long.
Yeah, you might notice that blue has some flip-flops in that chain. Those theoretically could also be hydrogen sensors just pointing along the same path, but oh well.
It would have been too many lights, I think. Oh, getting dizzy now. And let's go watch it a little faster. Blinky, blinky. Now, for funsies, I made this have 1,000 outputs, just so we can watch this go on for a little bit. Because with only 10 outputs, it just runs very fast and is kind of unimpressive. So let's go 3 speed. Blinky, 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 blinky. And this is still going too slow, so let's go 4 speed. Oh my god, this is 4 speed.
It is glorious.
It is really glorious. He had 340 cycles in his release solution. That means this 1,000 output solution gets 34,000 cycles. Thank you very much, Andy, for a very creative solution. Now here is the round 3B results. Let's go through them really fast. In 10th place was gggol. In 9th place we have ToughThought. Brookie here brings up 8th place, and Gigs here brings up 7th place. Biggie Mac got 6th. Noeuchar got 5. Sir got 4th place. Darius H is in 3rd, and DariusOne is in 2nd. And our round 3B winner is Andy in 1st place. Nice job, everybody. That was fun. Now our round 3 standings are here, and this combines round 3A and round 3B. And Brookie, why don't you explain how this works exactly?
Right. So what ended up happening was if you got less than 1st place, which is everybody except Andy, and you participated in week 3A, then your replacement bonus for week B was bumped up to a full 1 point. This means that even if you did relatively worse on week 3B, you likely scored better if your week 3B solution wasn't too much worse than your week 3A solution, because you got the full placement bonus instead of a less than full placement bonus. And that ended up being added to the points B, and that's why the points B here is higher than the points B for that was shown on the sidebar throughout this video. The video's results were essentially if week 3B was conducted in a vacuum.
Okay, well,
the scoring ended up being the highest of the two from week 3A and week 3B.
Okay, well, let's go through the round 3 results. Zig got 10th place overall. Biggie got 9th place. Sir at 8th and Darius H at 7th, with DariusOne bringing up 6th place. Gigs here has 5th place. Nice job, Gigs. And Brookie at 4th place. Even better. Noeuchar is at 3rd place, and we have a tie for 1st place. ToughThought, our week 3A winner, has 12 points. And Andy, our week 3 our week 3 winner, has 12 points. Nice job, everybody. Thank you all for submitting solutions. What fun this is. And our overall standings, our current standings for the whole tournament. We have Gigs here at 10th place. Rezoons at 9th. Zig has got 8th place with Noeuchar at 7th. Darius H at 6th place. ToughThought has 5th place. Brookie has 4th place. Andy has 3rd place, a nice jump from last week with this big win. DariusOne has 2nd place, and Sir has 1st place. Sir is our tournament leader right now. Even though he has no wins, it's the consistency that matters, and Sir has been consistently good. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been a lot of fun. I'm Rexkix. I've had Gigs with me and Brookie with me. Here's our title screen. This has been SpaceChem Tournament 2020, the round 3B video. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yesterday, Brookie, you gave us some interesting information about hydrogen fluoride. Please do that again, because that was funny.
Oh yeah, so hydrogen fluoride is actually really, really horrible stuff. It's hydrofluoric acid, and it's used as an etchant in clean rooms to remove all sorts of like organic debris and what's really particularly terrible about it is if you get it onto your skin, it will leach calcium out of your blood, and it will essentially make you have a heart attack. And yeah, there's literally like calcium cream that's like at every like station in a clean room, because if you get the stuff on you, it's like you're gonna get calcium cream on your hand, so you don't die. And it also dissolves glass, so you can't use normal labware with this stuff. You have to use plastic.
Oh,
So,
wow. It's really
yeah.
interesting.
Really horrible stuff.
Nasty, nasty. Gibbs.
Oh man, I have too many traumatic memories of thermodynamics.
Does Gibbs bring up thermodynamics?
Yeah, Josiah Willard Gibbs, the guy who decided that Gibbs Free Energy should be a thing.
Oh.
What is that?
It's like this idea that that a system at equilibrium tries to go to a state that minimizes Gibbs free energy.
And
That's
go on.
Pardon?
Go on. What is Gibbs free energy?
It's a thermodynamic quantity that, let me just double check. Gibbs free energy, which is equal to delta G is equal to delta H minus T delta S. Delta H being enthalpy and T delta S is temperature times the change in entropy. It's thermodynamic stuff, and yeah.
It's going way over my head, but that's okay. Let's go take a look at Gig's solution. In 7th place, we have Gigs with his solution here.